So, if you're like me and you have a lot of free time on your hands and you want to use some of that to educate yourself on the global issues going on at the moment, this video is for you. So, specifically, this video is going to touch on the situation in the DRC, or the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And if you don't know, the Congo is a Central African country who, like other African countries, is rich with certain resources that certain countries want to exploit heavily. And in looking at this, there's one book that I want to touch on, which I haven't quite finished yet, but is turning out to be a pretty good and informative read. The book is called Cobalt Red: How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives by Siddharth Kara. Now, if you don't know what cobalt is or why it's such a big deal, basically, any given electronic that needs to recharge uses a lithium-ion battery, and to make those requires cobalt. And in large part, at least coming out of the Democratic Republic of Congo, any of that cobalt is unethically sourced, like entirely. And this book really dives into that through investigative journalism. Kara goes behind the scenes, basically trying to get into different mining cities, different communities, and learning from people's stories and trying to bring education to people like us who, are watching this on our cell phones, our rechargeable devices right now. Hence the how the blood of the Congo powers our lives, literally. And we will dive into more of what all that entails. So most people generally probably have an understanding that, the benefits that we experience here in the Western sort of imperial world are, in part, based on other people's suffering. And the Congo is a great great example of this, in how you'll see articles talking about exploitation in the Congo is bringing global warming down because it provides electric vehicles. But that's really not what we're trying to go for, not the revolutionary future I'm striving for, at the very least. Now, behind me is an image from the book that sort of lays out a kind of flowchart of what all is happening here. Starting at artisanal miners, as they are called, which are basically enslaved peoples who have no other option than to engage in this industry called artisanal mining. And basically, these resources work their way up, as you can see, through the flowchart, eventually reaching battery manufacturers and electric vehicles and tech companies, where they are, turned into electronics for us to benefit. One great thing this book starts off with is sort of a history of the colonization of the Congo and sort of laying the groundwork for how we got here. And a lot of it is pretty complicated and ties into other histories of African exploitation and colonization, and it's stuff that I don't feel fully comfortable touching on, but I can tell you colonization, not fucking good, and the exploitation we're seeing from it as a result is killing people in the Congo for our sake, unaliving people, TikTok, whatever. And Siddharth brings in multiple different Congolese families' perspectives and here's what they have to say, and I want to bring one of those to y'all's attention so we can kind of understand the depth of what's going on, like, on the ground. So here's just one little snippet that I'm going to read for y'all. It says, "I worked so hard at Tilvezembi, please correct me on the pronunciation, to earn money to send Lubo to school. I told him, I want you to work with your mind, not your hands. Every day I came home from Tilvezembi, my body was in pain. My head and my neck hurt so badly. The skin on my feet was bleeding. My hands were covered in blisters. I had blisters inside of my mouth. My chest was always burning inside. I was coughing all the time. She just said no matter how much pain he felt or how sick he became, he never stopped working for even one day. He wanted Lubo to stay in school." So, as Siddharth touches on earlier in the book, the situation in the Congo is so desperate that children are forced to, leave their schooling and work in the mines, sometimes at ages like 11, sometimes even younger. It's really harrowing to learn about. But this is not the end of Shite and Lubo's story. Again, if I'm mispronouncing those, please correct me. As Shite laid out, he worked extremely hard every day through his pain, no matter what. That is until he experienced an accident at Tilvezembi, which is a particularly harsh mining town in the Congo. And this accident put him out of work, where he broke his arm and he needed weeks and weeks of recovery. Continuing, Lubo said it would make him proud to help me. He said he would go back to school as soon as I could work again. Shite laid out the events that followed. Lubo went to work at Tilvezembi. His boss was a Lebanese man named Aran. Aran had more than 200 boys working for him. He's the biggest boss at Tilvezembi. He told Lubo he must dig the tunnel. I did not want Lubo to do this because I know what can happen, but Aran said if he did not dig the tunnel, he could not work at the mine. Lubo worked at Tilvezembi digging the tunnel for more than 1 month. Every day I prayed that he would return home safe. My arm was almost better. I thought in a few days I would be able to work again and Lubo can return to school. On January 18th, 2019, Lubo did not come home from Tilvezembi. I ran to the mine. When I arrived, other parents were already there. Everyone was shouting, "Where is my son? Give me my son." The soldiers pushed their guns in our faces and forced us to return home. I was going crazy. I wanted to know what happened to Lubo. I walked up and down the road. I went back to the mine and pleaded with the soldiers, "Please let me find my son." But they beat me and kicked me. I stayed in the trees near the mine all night, and I went back in the morning. All the parents came back. There was so much shouting. The soldiers said they would shoot us. Then an official from CMKK came to the mine in a jeep. He told us to keep quiet and he will explain what happened. He said a tunnel had collapsed the previous day. He said no one survived. In the coming days, Shite and his wife heard reports that at least 40 children had been underground when the tunnel collapsed at Tilvezembi. Other artisanal miners at the site were given the unbearable task of attempting to dig out some of the bodies. They managed to retrieve 17, one of whom was Lubo. I held my son's dead body. I begged him to come back, Shite said. Unsurprisingly, these sort of tunnel collapses are not rare. While not all artisanal mining projects manifest in tunnel mining, when it does, it is very, very crude in that these workers do not get resources to support the mines. They don't get, or to support the tunnels above them. They don't get, any sort of protective equipment. They don't get resources they need to effectively do this job. They're just expected to do it or die. And one of the chapters, as very poignantly titled, is called "We Work in Our Graves." And I don't mean to put this out there to be gratuitous, if that's the right word, or trivial in, talking about suffering, because people might, run to the question, oh, well then what can we do? We need our phones, it's part of the world, and no one's saying to trash your phones. What is a more practical solution we can engage on is not buying new at all. Buying brand new devices just because, Verizon or whoever is giving you a deal for trading in your phone, you can get a brand new phone. That just further supplies this demand for constant electronics. Not to mention your old phone's gonna get trashed. It's not, they may have ways to recycle it, but at the end of the day, it's gonna end up somewhere where it's just rotting for you. So if this video has, urged you to want to take action, how you can do that is buying refurbished or already used technology. Do not upgrade your iPhone every year, for the sake of people like Lubo, and for the sake of countless names that we won't know. To end on a positive note, this is the resource where I found this book and another book called Freedom's a Constant Struggle. I will try and link it, and it's basically a compilation of really important readings